Hello, hello, hello. This is Nikki Acosta. You're watching Cloud Unfiltered or listening to Cloud Unfiltered. I've got Ballard with me, and today we've got some awesome guests, if I don't say so myself. I'd like to welcome some folks from Cisco, CloudCenter, formerly known as Clicker. Kurt, Zack, introduce yourselves.
Hey.
Kurt here.
Awesome intro. And Zack here, the guy that obviously can't get my Google Hangouts to work. So yeah, it's Kielich, product manager for CloudCenter.
And I'm product marketing for CloudCenter. So
there you go. So I'm really excited to have you on. You know, I saw the headline today. Sounds like there's really neat stuff happening. Google partners with Cisco on Kubernetes-based hybrid cloud, of which your team is playing a significant role. But before we get into all of that, tell us how you got into tech. Kurt, you can go first. How'd you end up at Cisco?
I've been kind of a geek my whole life. In second grade science project, I pound a couple nails through boards and bend them over, connected those nails to like a lamp cord, and then you put a little hot dog between the nails, and I made this hot dog cooker. And it's been downhill since then. That was like I peaked early, So I got an engineering degree. I got into software after that, and have been focused on tech, either using tech or selling and marketing into organizations that use technology ever since. So
despite all the good stuff behind you, you moved over to the dark side. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So I don't know if I'm a cloud Jedi, but maybe a cloud Jedi wannabe.
Awesome.
But been involved with cloud for probably 7 years now. So.
Yeah, I did a little Google stalking and saw some of your old videos from the VMware days.
That's right. There you go.
That's what we do.
You haven't aged, for what it's worth.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, and before that, I actually wrote a book on how to build a private cloud. That was back when I didn't know anything, so it's pretty fun reading now.
That now goes to the fiction section?
Exactly. Things have changed.
And Zack, how did you end up where you are today?
So that's a long and winding story. I actually went to school to study neuroscience, psychobiology, and all this different stuff, and ended up joining an ITSM product out of university. They got acquired by EMC. I then got rolled into VMware. Ended up doing cloud management over there. That's where I met Kurt. Kurt and I go way back to the VMware days, and then he hit me up and he was like, "Hey, I've got this opportunity, Clicker. Cloud management focuses on applications first and everything like that. You interested?" And the rest is history. Since then, it's been almost, well, I count it as 2 years, but I guess it really is only 18 months since we've been acquired by Cisco, and bought the ticket, taking our ride.
Maybe time goes faster while you're here. You age at Cisco or something, right?
Well, the amount of work that we put out in the 18 months, in fact, as a quick side note, is I actually thought all of our dates on our documentation the other day were wrong, because I was like, there's no way we delivered 4.8 this year. That had to have been at least a year and a half ago. Sure enough, the dates are right. We've just been turning out so much good stuff.
That's great to hear. Welcome to the time warp.
Yeah, right.
So for those who are tuning in who aren't familiar with CloudCenter, and it's CloudCenter, it's no space in between with a big C, right?
Exactly.
Right.
2 big C's. Yeah.
2 big C's.
Camel
Great.
case.
So for those of our listeners, and maybe some folks within Cisco who aren't familiar with CloudCenter, give us the elevator pitch. What is it? What does it do? Who's it for? What makes it awesome?
Yeah, what makes it better than anything else? What is the awesomeness sauce of CloudCenter?
Zack, you go. I've got my buzzword bingo card here, so I'll just mark it up.
So in as little buzzwords as possible.
Yeah.
Sure. So the way I like to describe it is, you've seen this progression through the industry of cloud management. First, it was like all script based. Then it moved into orchestration, and they said, oh, well, all these scripts are the same for every single company. It doesn't matter if you're Coke or Pepsi, you're interfacing with it the same way. And so these CMPs moved to like an orchestration, and they just basically packaged up these scripts and resold them. And then the industry kind of said, oh, well, I don't even want to even deal with virtual infrastructure, deploying virtual infrastructure in the cloud and stuff like that. Let's go to PaaS. And then our iteration of it is that, let the application, the end result, tell us what the outcome of whatever you're requesting should be, and we'll figure out how to deploy the virtual infrastructure in the best practices for that underlying cloud. It just so happens that taking that methodology of, deploying virtual infrastructure, virtual machines and containers and all this different stuff in context or in scope of the application also makes it so that it can move to any cloud and it's not tied into one specific underlying infrastructure. So a lot of knock-on benefits that come from taking an application first approach to deploying and managing clouds.
You want to add on? You want to add on to that? And by the way, CMP stands for Cloud Management Platform.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and I like to call it a cloud management or cloud consumption management platform, because it's not. You say, oh, I'm not managing, my Amazon S3 bucket with CloudCenter. You're actually deploying an application that consumes cloud resources. So it's really a cloud consumption. And so we allow, use automation to deploy and manage workloads. And then we kind of got a governance wrapper around it, because managing the people that are deploying those workloads, the clouds, the cloud accounts, Amazon East, Amazon West, and then the applications, in the current multi-cloud kind of environment, managing all of that happens together. They're really interdependent. So our cloud management platform, has a user perspective, an application perspective, and a cloud perspective. So you can apply governance and controls across all of that. So users get self-service, instant access to deploy what they need when they need it. But then you can also do that within policy and compliance and governance, so you don't have people doing things they shouldn't do.
Can I take you a step down? Can you tell me how does the main user of CloudCenter actually use it? So is it an operations person? Is it a developer person? It can probably be both. But give me an example of how they would use it.
Yeah, it's really, it's basically a person needs a workload deployed. That can be as simple like a VM, or it can be a test or dev environment, or it can be a business application. So the user, if you will, is going into a portal and requesting, there's a set of easy buttons that they can click on, provide a little information, and then deploy that workload. So sometimes someone in IT may be using it, or you may have dev and test users, or you may have more like business application users that you may have a drug researcher who wants to stand up a drug environment, use it, run their analytics, and tear it down. So think of it as a consumption portal. We can front end that with like a ServiceNow or other ITSM service catalog if you want your users to request all their IT services through a single place, or it has its own consumption portal. But again, the user logs in and they can only see what they've got permission to deploy. And when they go to deploy, they can only deploy it to environments where they've got permissions. So we really make it easy for people to make good choices and not get themselves in trouble.
The way that I've explained it to people who are like, wait, why would I need that? How is it different than PaaS? Is kind of like, I explained it as like the Google Translator. Like you feed, what you want your app to look like, or you feed it at any kind of like templated thing that you want to deploy, and it will then translate it down into whatever cloud APIs that sit underneath for whatever type of infrastructure. Or it works with VMware too, correct?
Yeah, definitely. VMware OpenStack, it's something like 12 or 13 clouds out of the box, and all the different regions. So that's Alibaba, Google Compute, Amazon, Azure Stack is coming, Kubernetes is coming. So yeah, I mean your description is correct. I also put it in the fact that 10 years ago, people were developing maybe on physical boxes. You had Nikki's development machine and Kurt's development machine and Valor's development machine, and then virtualization came out, right? And there's this little operating system called the hypervisor that had an API you stuck on top of all of that, and allowed you to go and can pool and abstract all these compute resources into one thing, and then basically segment it into virtual machines, right? Well, luckily, history is about to repeat itself. All these clouds have APIs as well that allow us to abstract and normalize all those clouds into one pool of resources and do that translation, Nikki, that you're talking about. Just because at the end of the day, the reason we build, as IT folks, the reason we build virtual machines is so that the business can have applications to drive the business forward, right? So we took a tops-down approach on how we actually deploy that.
Yeah, I mean,
normalize all that stuff.
I think it takes the control point and it makes it more applicable instead of to virtual machines or, you know, infrastructure. It really looks at it through that app lens, which is awesome. And I haven't read the latest release, but I know there's some other cool features in there, like as far as, you know, tracking performance, for example, or costs across multiple clouds. You know,
Yeah. Tell us what's new, man. What's the new hotness?
So we got a couple of releases coming out soon. Well, the new hotness in 4.8, which, you know, as I mentioned, came fairly recently, but feels like eons ago to me. Focused around bringing in virtual machines that weren't deployed from CloudCenter. So we refer to that as brownfield. Being able to go out to a cloud and say, you already have 1,000 virtual machines out there, bring it into CloudMagick's, you know, management. And then being able to go and build day 2 operations to go and say, I want to install an antivirus on there, or I want to turn on backups on it. Being able to build all that out as you want to. The stuff that's coming in the next release in 4.8.2 should be here before the end of the calendar year, is all focused around, you know, being able to do something cool. It's a policy that allows you to suspend and resume your virtual machines on a scheduled basis. So imagine, if you will, you know, your developers come in at 8 a.m. and they leave, you know, around 6 or 7 p.m. Well, from 7 p.m. till they come back in the morning at 8 a.m., that's wasted cloud time, right? Cloud cost. You don't actually, nobody's using it. It's not adding value to your company. So why not suspend those for the time being and save a little bit of money and then bring it up the next morning before the engineers come back in? You know, those are the things that we're trying to look at to bring in hard cost savings into the platform. We also have capacity management functionality coming out in 4.8.2, as well as you know, support for IPv6. You know, a lot of geeky stuff in there too.
Super awesome. So what has the acquisition of Cisco done to how you prioritize features? Like, are you getting different features than you would have before kicked off, given Cisco's customer base?
Yeah, so there's certain things that we've prioritized higher. All right, so for example, Azure Stack, I should say, isn't available through Cisco, right? Cisco builds the UCS blades, they bring it out to the customer site, they install Azure Stack, and so on and so forth, and you get this big, is cloud enabled. Well, because of that, we're prioritizing Azure Stack as one of the clouds that CloudCenter will support to, you know, add more value to the Azure Stack hardware as well. As for like, has Cisco like told us not to integrate with something because it's a competitor to Cisco or anything like that? Definitely not, right? We're still integrating into, VMware, for example, and VMware products, and OpenStack, which, obviously Cisco has, things like Vim that, and other things, MetaCloud. But so is that Cisco has influence a little bit, but we're still very autonomous from the standpoint that we're still integrating with things that Cisco might not have normally done if it wasn't the space. We're completely agnostic, right?
So tell me about Cisco's acquiring AppDynamics.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you envision sitting next to or alongside, or maybe even in some cases slightly competitive to something like an AppDynamics.
Yeah. So actually, there's a couple of holes, if you will, in our respective products that we fill for each other. So it's actually a really good fit. So for example, in CloudCenter, you can auto scale by adding instances and then tearing them back based on like CPU utilization or memory, something like that. Well, most of our customers don't auto scale on a simple metric like a hardware utilization. They want something like an AppDynamics to look at the whole ecosystem of everything from business transaction times all the way down to identify when an emerging issue is happening that may cause a business impact. So having, you can auto scale with CloudCenter, but adding, that kind of ecosystem and application monitoring capability of AppDynamics makes it better.
It gives you more intelligence to make a better decision. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's right. And so similarly in AppDynamics, they can do this kind of pretty sophisticated monitoring, and business logic so that if these conditions exist, send an email to an admin. If these other conditions exist, then we want to auto scale or do something. But they don't have that tool to actually go do the work. So we fill a hole there by actually being able to respond to a condition. So it's really a good yin and yang kind of story.
So they can be more of the brains and you can be more of the brawn.
That's right.
Okay, yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Now, what about something like security and like Umbrella and some of those other things that have you been talking with them? Is that anything to do with this?
Yeah, so I mean, CloudCenter is able to install a lot of those agents, or if they require agents along with it. So if you look at something like StealthWatch or something like that, being able to, or even CloudLock, right? All these different things that are able to manage an application's security or the communications, right? CloudCenter wouldn't necessarily stand in the way of any of that, but it would help to have CloudCenter actually dynamically install the agents upon application deployment, and then of course tether that back to the central compute area that's taking all that information or all that data and making information of it. We do the same with tetration today. We'll install a tetration sensor if you're not using the 9K so you can get information about your networking communications through the application. So it's kind of an ancillary story. It's nothing that like I said, we don't stand in the way, or we don't utilize any of that functionality today, but we do enable it.
Yeah.
I'm impressed at how easy it seems. Like all these things are pretty easy to integrate into. So like we could throw whatever product at you, and you'd say, yeah, we can integrate into that. We just use the API.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's content for us, right? So through the application deployment process, everything's kind of like a life cycle, right? And as you're deploying these virtual machines, we'd insert a script or an orchestration, or however you wanted to, a Puppet, Chef, Ansible, touch point as well, that we could then go and just there. And that's how we made the AppD integration already, and the tetration integration already, and all these other things. Yeah, it's just content to us at the end of the day.
So along those lines, another cool integration is with like CSR 1000, right? So CSR 1000 is a virtual firewall. So you can go up on Amazon and download it from the marketplace, install it, and if you install the same at the other end back on-prem, then it provides a secure connection to the cloud. So CloudCenter can deploy an application if it's a split application where maybe you have your database back on-prem and your app or web tier up in the cloud. It can deploy the CSR on each end. Now CSR is kind of a heavy footprint, so we're actually looking at deploying an application that's split using an existing CSR service that's already been deployed and modeling that into an application profile. So that whole application deployment that's got that secure connectivity is kind of seamless to the person that's deploying the workload. So we try to, part of the philosophy behind CloudCenter is to try to hide a lot of that infrastructure detail from the users that want to be more focused on the application.
Speaking of those users, I've definitely talked to, we talk to people every week, and it seems like, there's broad recognition that some customers are farther ahead than others, no matter what kind of tool or cloud sort of thing that you're talking about. It seems like there's a lot of people who are kind of trying to still implement and get their cloud strategy right. How is CloudCenter helping those folks?
Well, I think you're right. There's a wide range, just like in any population. You got kind of a normal distribution, and so at the advanced end, we're seeing customers that say, we've spent 2 or 3 years moving to more of a service consumption model for how IT delivers, and as a result, their cloud bill is going up 50% a year, right? And so they're like, yeah, what can we do to kind of help throttle that? And so we've got a lot of those features like Zack mentioned, the suspension policy, scaling policies, being able to specify an instance size. If you give a developer small, medium, and large, they pick large with solid state drive. They always
every time.
Yeah. And in the cloud, if you look at a cloud rate card, every step up basically doubles the price. So we have some of those things in our product that help, pare back that cloud bill. And the general idea is, don't spend money on things that aren't adding value. So that's kind of out that, folks that have been in the cloud for a few years, maybe they're going into second cloud, that kind of use automation and software defined everything to your advantage. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have customers that, oh, go ahead.
No, keep going.
I was going to say at the other end of the spectrum, we have folks that are still, kind of like in the old days, you'd call like virtualization or virtualization plus, right? They've got their ESX clusters, they've got some, manual processes for deploying things. Somebody wants a simple VM or a dev environment, and you kick off a help desk ticket, and it goes through, and 6 different people touch it. And 3 weeks later, you get your request fulfilled. So they may be using CloudCenter, even just in an on-prem environment, to help automate the deployment of a simple VM or a dev stack for, think of it as like a dev cloud in the corner. So we have folks that are doing that as well. So it's really, a broad spectrum.
What is your take on container adoption? Are you seeing a lot of—
That's the thing I like to tell.
Nope, Zach, are you there?
He paused on us.
We lost Zach.
He's there. It looks like he's saying something very intelligent, though. Oh, is he back?
I think I'm lagging.
Oh, Zach, are you back?
I think it's just lag here.
Oh,
yeah,
we lost you.
So you were going to go on to talk about containers.
Yeah, just kind of wanted to get your sort of take on container adoption. Is it happening in production? Are people just kind of still testing the waters? What technologies are you seeing requests for within your platform?
We're definitely moving towards the market wanting to use and deploy containers in a production environment. It was really a kind of a developer-led kind of technology because of that help desk ticket and wait thing that I mentioned earlier. They want to be able to, do the Docker run command and then stand up an environment and get a consistent result without having to talk to IT to stand up the infrastructure and the stack beneath it. So we are moving towards supporting containers as a orchestrator in CloudCenter. So we abstract the APIs. So if you deploy to Amazon, we convert the needs of the app into the API calls there. If you're deploying on-prem in vSphere, we convert. So we'll have an orchestrator for Kubernetes. So we'll convert the needs of the app into that, do that kind of native container deployment into a Kubernetes environment as well.
And is that a difficult thing to do? Because maybe I don't have this right. I know a lot of CloudCenter was based on virtual machines initially, right? But I know that you guys mentioned at the beginning of our conversation today that it's mostly focused on applications. So is it a difficult thing to move from this paradigm where you're mostly supporting VMs to now moving towards containers, or is it a very simple change?
No, I mean, it's a little complicated at multiple levels. I mean, if there's networking is different in containers. There's, you're not deploying a VM. You can, that's how CloudCenter does it now. You can deploy into Kubernetes, but you need to deploy a VM, and then we'll deploy a workload into that. So it does change things. We actually deploy components of our application in containers, and so, it's not, a foreign technology by any means.
Right. So you've been doing a lot of container stuff already. Now it's just increasing the abilities for it.
And then behind the scenes, there's kind of the housekeeping stuff that has to happen with a product like CloudCenter as well. Right now, we license based on number of VMs deployed. So if you go to a container kind of scheme where you're deploying workloads directly at the kernel level without a VM, then we need to update our licensing and able to track. So there's some of that kind of behind the scenes changes that need to happen as well. So it does represent a shift.
So does CloudCenter, can it provide reporting to help customers with licensing and reporting?
Sure. So when we deploy, into say Amazon East, Amazon West, we have an orchestrator, a piece of software that goes into each of those regions. If you have multiple vCenter environments, so our orchestrator communicates with a little agent that we put in each VM. So we have detailed, granular data about consumption that we can then roll up, through the cloud rate card, if you will, or you can assign costs for time-based use in your like a VMware environment. So you can aggregate that. You can show costs by cloud, by app, by business unit, or you can drill down. So we have a lot of data, and we can either use the CloudCenter dashboard, or we can export that data into the reporting tools that most of our customers already have.
So who's your ideal customer for this? What is a perfect customer? What point are they at?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier, there's this kind of normal distribution. I think the ideal customer at the advanced end has felt the pain of multi-cloud, right? They've automated on-prem. Maybe they've been using Amazon for a couple years, and for whatever reason, a business reason, or they've got a new leadership, or they want to reduce risk and with lock-in, they've got a mandate to now use Azure or Bluemix or Alibaba. And so they look at all the work they've done to write automation for Amazon, and they're like, man, I don't want to redo all of this for Azure, because I know that after we go to Azure, then something's going to change and we're going to want to go to Alibaba or whatever, right? We're still early innings in the cloud adoption. So they go, okay, I don't want to have all of these automation artifacts that are hardwired or hard-coded to a specific environment. Maybe we could find a way to abstract that. So at the sophisticated end of the spectrum, they've got this multi-cloud. Gee, I don't want to incur the cost of having to do this kind of automation cloud by cloud. So that's the ideal prospect there. I think earlier in the kind of the cloud journey, just the idea that they want to automate deployment. They want to have some guardrails. They want users to be able to self-service, but they want to give IT the ability to say, up to a certain number of VMs, or up to you can't put, live HIPAA patient data in the cloud. It has to be in the Phoenix data center. So they've got some of these policies and rules that they want to use to put guardrails around that automation. So they're a good prospect as well. It's one caveat on that. If it's just like a VM team that wants to automate deploying VMs, they're automating a task in a multi-step process, that's not as good a fit, because there are a lot of tools that can do that. But if they want to deploy a workload and they want to automate, the VM, and then the network team setting up the firewall rules, and then the security team looking at, typically that 4 or 5 steps with 4 or 5 different people, they want to automate that kind of process, even if it's back in their data center. That's a great fit for CloudCenter.
It's kind of interesting, because as you started talking about the hybrid cloud thing, I think that kind of goes back to the announcement that just came out today, and the reason why Nikki scheduled us for today, right? Nikki, you knew all about this.
Genius.
This announcement that came out today. So tell us about it. And welcome back, Zach. Good to have you back. So what does this announcement mean today?
Yeah, so I mean, the announcement basically means that you can take any service, right? Applications are made up of services. Any service run by Kubernetes, put it anywhere that you like, and connect to other services anywhere else, right? So, for example, let's take somebody that has a whole bunch of systems that are not going anywhere anytime fast, right? They're back-end systems on mainframes, a whole bunch of data on them. For whatever reason, they're not moving anywhere. But you've got these developers that want to build new applications based on container technology that sits close to the end users, so they can have great performance and all this different stuff. Through Cisco's relationship with Google that we just announced, deploy these application services, or take advantage of services that are already provided by cloud vendors, and connect them to any of the other services in any other cloud, back on premise, anything like that, all securely done, everything and just make it. You don't care where the services live. You don't care where the data lives. You don't care where any of this stuff lives. We'll be able to connect it all through and manage it from one through your entire DevOps and software development lifecycle.
Yeah. And just a little, to clarify a little, I mean, what we announced is basically a joint developed solution between Cisco and Google. And so it's a combined Cisco hardware and software, security, networking, connectivity, and then Google Cloud services, as well as other Google software, Kubernetes, and things like that. It's a combined solution, so it'll be pre-integrated, single order, a couple different configurations, Cisco support for level 1 with Google for level 2. So, what I kind of hear in the developer community is that they spend, they talk about focusing on the app, but people spend a lot of time on the stack. And so the idea here is you get this kind of Kubernetes, the flexibility and agility, but you get a pre-integrated single vendor stack. So that to me is pretty cool.
Peanut butter jelly time, better together.
Exactly.
Get it. So talk to us about deployment. Like what happens, how is it delivered? When a customer says, yes, I want this, this sounds great. Like what does that process look like for them to get deployed and installed and trained and up and running and using it?
Well, first, I think I have an order form here. Let me see. No, we take PayPal or no. Well, the idea is that Cisco has got is a global machine, right? So we've got a great field. We've got a lot of history and expertise in enterprise IT. We've got a huge partner community that helps sell our products out into the global accounts. So basically, it's taking a combined solution that's designed for the Cisco and Cisco partner community to really carry forward and sell with Google participation and support. And then you've got all these great Google services, the Google Cloud, as well as Kubernetes and Apptio and other things that really help modernize an application development and deployment process that are added to that as well. So it is a peanut butter and jelly kind of story, but the go-to-market is focused, on the Cisco machine, if you will. And then that Cisco support, the one number to call kind of thing, from a trusted provider like Cisco, that's a big deal as well. Again, like I said, a lot of people spend a lot of time kind of integrating these kinds of components into a stack. So this kind of pre-integrated stack as a kind of a way to simplify a lot of this technology that's being adopted, I think is a great value to our customers.
So is the deployment a services engagement, or is it a software deployment? Who's deploying it?
Well, there will be two flavors in general. There will be a kind of an extension of a hyper-converged. We're talking about HyperFlex with software pre-installed that reaches out to consume cloud services. So there will be Cisco and partner services available to help get that deployed and implemented. We'll have a big push on the DevNet and the developer community to help create content and create some momentum behind the users of this kind of technology. But yeah, it'll be sold and help implemented and supported by Cisco with Google.
What are your thoughts on PaaS? On the Redshifts and the OpenShifts and the Pivotals of the world? Like where does CloudCenter fit into that thinking, or not?
Well, at a high level, I think of the PaaS decision as something that's made by the development team. You need, just like you pick Java or .NET or something on how you're going to architect an application, you pick a PaaS as a way to develop and deploy applications. It's got the PaaS services are going to be consumed by an app, and so you have to write that application to those specific services. Those services could be on-prem or in the cloud. There's ways to deliver those services, but you're making a development decision. Whereas with CloudCenter, we're able to kind of model, any kind of application. We can include PaaS services in that model. We can use, out-of-box services like Apache or SQL Server. We can use cloud services like, that Amazon or others. So it's a little more of a broader approach. We still get that kind of automation and automated deployment, but a lot of times that kind of solution is selected more by the IT ops, whereas the PaaS solution is often driven, that decision is driven by the app dev teams.
Zach, are you back with us? Zach is still having, I see his little frozen icon here, but I can't hear him. So we'll wait for Zach to come back on. I'm going to ask the question I'm sure people have asked you before, which is, how do you compare to other solutions that might be out there, like a right scale or something?
Well, so, you know, we have a patented solution. No, we've got it's a unique approach. So when we develop CloudCenter, the founders of Clicker, they basically set out to solve 3 problems. One is that the cloud's APIs are all different. And this was back when, you know, there was kind of the OpenStack versus Amazon. You know, is OpenStack going to adopt Amazon's API? And, you know, the founders of Clicker basically said, there's no business motivation for a convergence of APIs. So let's assume they're all going to stay different. And the services you get from these different clouds are going to be different. And then 2, they saw that the automation to orchestrate the infrastructure deployment and then the application components and deploying those in a particular order and things like that, those were often separate. We have 2 different automation tools. And then they saw that the management of the clouds, the people that deploy into the clouds, and then the management of those applications, version controls, the underlying services, totally interdependent. So CloudCenter is uniquely designed to solve for those 3 problems at the same time. So we abstract the cloud APIs. You know, we create a deployable blueprint that contains all the information that's needed to deploy the app. And then that gets translated by the orchestrator that's in each environment into the API calls. So it's a model once, deploy anywhere approach that is much different than scripts. You know, if you look at, look at something like Jenkins, right? It's a CI/CD tool. There's a Jenkins plugin for hundreds of different environments. So there's a Jenkins plugin for Amazon. But when you go look at that, there's like hundreds of lines of code. It's hard-coded to Amazon East. There are keys that are hard-coded. You know, so if you want to deploy from Jenkins to Amazon West, now you've got to copy and paste and modify. Now you get 2 automation artifacts. If you want to, you know, so you get this automation sprawl. With CloudCenter, that model once, deploy anywhere really reduces the cost of scaling automation to multiple apps, multiple clouds. So it's a long-winded answer. It's a lot there, but it is a significantly different approach.
Love it. Zach, are you with us now?
I don't know. You tell me. Am I?
I can hear you. You might want to turn your video off. For some reason, we're dropping packets. You're a little delayed there. Boo. So what's going on with the? Oh, yep. You're still getting delayed here. Yeah.
You know, I was on a webcast with Zack once, and so I put I can't remember if it's Phineas or Ferb, but it's one of them looks kind of like Zack, so I put that picture up instead of Zack. It's pretty funny.
He told us in a private chat that his laptop is running 95 degrees.
Oh yeah.
Southern California is getting burned right now.
Heat wave,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
I saw his windows open, and I always laugh because I live in Texas, and like you never open your windows ever. Like it doesn't matter what time of year it is. Like either bugs are going to come in or something else.
Next time he's got to do his Google Hangout from his water cooled gaming desktop. You know, it's like something with a little more.
His mining rig.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's next for CloudCenter? Is there anything coming up? Any events that y'all are attending that you want to tell us about?
You know, we're going to Amazon. The Amazon show is coming up. You know, amazing event. I think last year it was like 50% growth in attendance from the year before, and it's supposed to be another 50%. Last year we had this great, we had this awesome spot right near the front door. And so we did a Family Feud game, which was this, this custom design thing in the Cisco booth. A lot of people go to the Amazon show and they see a Cisco booth and they're not sure what to think, right? So we got to make it fun. We're not there to sell racks worth of hardware. We've got a lot of, software that helps connect to the cloud. We've got software that helps secure the cloud. We got software that helps manage the cloud. So our purpose when we go to a show like Amazon is try to rebrand Cisco a little bit. You know, it's not your father's Cisco kind of story. So this year, I may be letting the cat out of the bag here a little early, but you know, we're going to actually have like a second booth out by the registration table. There's like, I don't know if you've gone to the Amazon show, but they've got like a DJ, you know, up on the main floor by the escalators outside the show
I've
floor.
seen that. Yeah, it's actually
We're
makes
gonna-
me
we're
want
gonna
to
have-
register.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're going to have a hang space, you know, kind of across from the DJ booth. So we're going to have our second booth outside the expo hall. So that's like the big reveal this year. So, you know, we're trying to make it fun. You know, we're going to have games. We're going to have, you know, charging station. I tried to get us to have like a, you know, a big dome like you've got at Burning Man where you can kind of go in and zen out, and then maybe with some flaming sculptures. But, you know, there's rules when you go to a conference. So we'll have some fun games and, you know, be able to hang out, maybe have some food, coffee, I don't know, but it'll be a space across from the DJ booth. That's right.
But no dome and no furry boot covers, I guess.
No furry boot covers. Maybe some hula hoops. I don't know. We'll see. Zack,
I like your style, Kurt.
Yeah.
I like it too.
You know, because you go to conference with, you know, 25,000 of your closest friends, and a lot of developers and people in tech aren't big extroverts. So like having a little space where they can kind of, you know, just unwind a little bit before they go back into the crowd. That's kind of the
by the second day too, sometimes you just need that. Oh, and by the way, without video, now you get a really cool picture of me and my wife on our honeymoon, by the way. Yeah,
nice.
That's yeah. But yeah, at any of these conferences, you need somewhere just to, like, I don't know, kick back and just get a little bit of coffee and just hang out and not be bothered for a little bit.
Yeah.
I wish I could have that at home.
Yeah, for sure.
I did actually. I just ordered. It's like a Kickstarter thing. It's like a hanging tree pod. It's like this little pod that hangs from a tree, and they've got like 6-foot ones now, and they have.
Oh, yeah.
Now they have them where there's like mesh, and they've got like a door that like a little bug cover, and I'm like, yes, because you know, hanging out in Texas isn't always that great, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to create an atmosphere of zen and chill in my backyard.
It's like a human-sized gerbil nest, right? That hangs from the tree. Yeah.
Oh, it's cool. It's really neat. It's like a little hanging tent. And since you're not touching the ground, you don't have to worry about ants, which is nice.
Oh, right.
I want to one day I want to repeat the Amazon laser course, maybe for my son's birthday party. The little laser course that they did, where if you touch the lasers, you got to like climb through the lasers. And if
Mission
you hit
Impossible style?
Yeah, Mission Impossible style.
Oh, nice.
That'd be great.
They've done some really cool things at that conference. So fun. So fun. Well, we are about out of time, Kurt. I know you have a hard stop here in a couple of minutes, so I wanted to thank you both so very much. Zack, I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties you're having,
no.
but
it's like 95 degrees in San Diego right now. My laptop's going crazy.
It's just nuts. I can't even believe it.
Yeah.
You can follow Zack at CloudMagic, which is probably one of the more fun Twitter handles I've gotten to say. And Kurt, what is your Twitter handle?
You know, I've got a unique name, so I actually got to use my name. So it's just Kurt Milne.
Milne.
That's right.
So lucky. So lucky. Well, if anyone has questions about CloudCenter, feel free to give these guys a shout on Twitter, or if you are an existing Cisco customer, feel free to talk to your Cisco account rep.
Yeah,
and they'll be happy to get you plugged into these guys. What a great team of people over
Thanks for having us. This has been super fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Awesome. Let's do it again soon.
We'll have to do it again. I know you guys have some other cool stuff that's coming up, and I would love to talk to you more about it. So hopefully we can have you on before the end of the year.
Sounds great.
That'd be awesome.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
All right.
Everyone say bye.
All right, later on.
Bye.